better daily, where we work hard in our minds, bodies, and our spirits to become 1% better every single day. Download the app and join our Betterment family at betterdaily.live to catch the video version of these podcasts. Here's your host and my dad, Alex Van Houten.
What is up, Betterment family? This is Alex Van Houten in Better Daily Live. Happy Thursday. It is Word Thursday, and today's word is openness. We've been going through the big 5 personality traits: extroversion, conscientiousness, agreeableness, openness to experience, and neuroticism. And today we're talking about openness. Good morning, Robin. Good to see you this morning, man. So openness is a really interesting personality trait. So as I've said on each one of these, I want to make sure that we're all clear about these big 5 personality traits. You either are high, moderate, low in each one of these, and that's not good or bad. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and it takes different personalities from different people to make different things happen in the world. Or, as we would say in Christian circles, God has made all of us unique for a very specific and important purpose. So, that said, openness. It's a very interesting personality trait. Openness to experience is really a rating of how open you are to ideas. And that leads to basically the way your brain is wired and connected, whether or not things are wide open for you and it's easy for you to make connections between completely different things, or whether or not there are nice, neat little boxes where everything fits in your brain and you don't like that change thing so much. And that's not a bad thing. So I rate 98 out of 100 from percentiles perspective on openness. So I have very, very high openness, both from a creativity and intellection. Those are 2 aspects of openness. That is to say, I'm very, very open to ideas and I enjoy exploring new ideas, and I have new ideas all the time, and that has its strengths and weaknesses, as we'll talk about. And then from a creativity perspective, I enjoy art and music and poetry, right? So those are 2 aspects of openness. Now, my wife, on the other hand, she's relatively low in openness. I think she rates a 32 out of 100, and openness to experience. So the idea of trying new things just to try new things, or she'll listen to music, but she's that person who will listen to like 2 songs on repeat because she likes those 2 songs, whereas I'll go, that was an interesting song. Let's listen to the complete works of this artist and decide if there are any other songs that really resonate with me. She doesn't play that game very much. And then also, poetry or stories. She's not much for any of those either, which really stinks, by the way, for a writer, because I would love to write my wife poetry, but anytime I have, she's like, I really appreciate the hard work you put into this, but I have no idea what you're trying to say to me. So that's always fun. So those of you who are high in openness, and I would love to hear, you're high in openness, by the way, if you like to read things that seem to have nothing to do with your life or your occupation. I joke that if I can't fall asleep at night, I like to watch YouTube videos about astronomy and learn about black holes. It has nothing to do with my life at all, but very, very interesting to me anyway. So, you're high in openness if you're there. Or are you low in openness? Are you somebody who, like, your spectrum of novelty, of new ideas, of new experiences, it's relatively small, and you have to really schedule that in. I have a friend who's very low in openness, and she makes it a point every year. It's a New Year's resolution of hers to try something new every month. Like, she has to physically schedule that into her calendar, otherwise it won't happen. High openness people, new things happen to us all the time. We're just walking in newness all the time, like a child almost. But for somebody who's low in openness, if they're like, I need to get out of my bubble and I need to get out of my shell and I need to experience something new and shake things up for myself, it has to be a very, very intentional thing for a person like that. So some strengths of high openness people is that we're really creative. And we're very good at drawing metaphors and analogies from different places in our experience because we're so broad, right, on that front. And then oftentimes we're also very creative, sometimes to a fault. So creative people have a really easy time starting projects, but creative people have a really hard time finishing projects, which is one of our weaknesses. Is we can start all kinds of projects but not follow them through. So that's a difficult thing for somebody who's high in openness. And another strength of somebody who's high in openness is that oftentimes we're open to new people. So for somebody who's high in openness, for me, I've never had a hard time having a great conversation with anybody from any walk of life. They might believe different things than I do. They might even take offense to things that I think and really hold dear and are important to me, but I can see their perspective. It's not so much empathy. It's just an openness to their experience. And a weakness of an open person as well is that sometimes it's very hard for an open person to forge an identity, right? Because you have so many ideas swimming around in your head, and the question is, what do you really think? What do you really believe? What do you really cling to? What's at the core of you, since it's so easy for you to move around and understand and read and think and listen to different podcasts and stuff. So there's always something new going on in your head, and it's important for an open person in order to find joy and peace and not get too anxious. It's important for an open person to forge an identity, even though it's difficult to understand maybe what you really believe, given all the things that you are open to. So on the other end of the spectrum, there are some strengths for people who are low in openness. One strength for a person who's low in openness is that they're not easily distracted. So my wife is not very easily distracted from her tasks or her goals, right? I like to say that in our relationship, my head is in the clouds and her feet are planted firmly in the ground. And I have some friends who are like that too. They like to talk to me because I'm a good idea generator. And I like to talk to them because when it comes to the execution of ideas, they're very helpful in keeping my feet planted firmly in the ground. So that's a strength of a person who's low in openness, feet planted firmly in the ground, interested in the particulars of a situation, not necessarily dreaming all the time of ways things could go, right? Another strength of somebody who's low in openness is that they tend to protect their own, right? So this could be a weakness too, but this is important. My wife is a very discerning individual. That means that when she meets people, she's not immediately open to their perspective. Like, I can have a great conversation with this person and I can see where they're coming from and I think they're very interesting. And then I'll be like, wow, that person's so great. I'd love to have them over for dinner. And she'd be like, no. This didn't quite come through my filter here. And so for me, I rely on her sometimes from a discernment perspective, because I don't really pick up on the negative cues of certain individuals very much. And I'm not saying that everybody's evil or that my wife thinks that, but I am saying that she's a discerning individual about who she spends her time with and how quickly she'll allow herself to take on another person's perspective in that front. So she's very protective of her own, which is a great quality for a mom with two boys who would run off with just about anybody. So some weaknesses of being low in openness is one, when you're low in openness, sometimes that can be abrasive or off-putting, discriminatory, right? That's the dark side of discernment, is discrimination. And I don't mean like racially discriminatory, although there does seem to be a connection between those who have in-group preferences, which is biologically mediated, by the way. Like, most people prefer to be with people who are like them, not just skin color, but beliefs and I mean, it could be that rooting for the same football team, like if you're a Steelers fan, you want to hang out with Steelers fans, not Titans fans or whatever. Like, it has nothing to do with racial discrimination here, but I'm saying that people who are low in openness, they can be discerning, but they can also be discriminating, right? It's difficult for people who are low in openness to be very inviting to people who they see are out group. Whereas us very high in openness people, we see somebody standing by themselves at a party or social function, and we're just like, hey, come here. I'm going to drag you into this conversation. Even if they're not interested. They're like, I want to know what you think. I don't know what I think. Well, that's great. Let's ask some questions. So low in openness can be weak in that front. And then people who are low in openness can sometimes get really stuck in their line of thinking, the narrowness of their vision, and that can hurt them because in their mind they can't see any solutions down this narrow corridor, right? They're like, oh, I have this problem I'm dealing with, and there's just no way out. I can't figure out what's going on. And that's why they need some friends who are high in openness to say, wow, have you thought about this? Because it's not just this narrow corridor. You might have a solution that sits outside of that. And because you're low in openness, you can't see beyond your narrow corridor of experience here. And so, low in openness, high in openness, it's extremely important that there's a lot of communication that happens. Because if the world was full of high open people, everything would be sunshine and rainbows, and nothing would get done. And we would all have dreams and no way to get there. And if the world was full of low openness people, then you wouldn't have music and art and beauty. There wouldn't be a lot of that. But man, there would be a lot of work getting done in these very narrow veins where nobody was friends with each other except for those who were just like them, right? So it's so important that those of us who are high in openness regularly communicate with those who are low in openness. And we have those of us who are high in openness, we have a little bit of patience and understanding for those who don't appreciate art and poetry and all the ideas. My poor wife, man, I'm always learning something new and I'm like, wow. And I've got a teacher and she's like, I could have gone the rest of my life and not known that and been just fine. Thanks. And so she likes to joke, Alex, can I get the Cliff Notes version? Like of what you're about to say, can I get the Cliff Notes? Because she does appreciate that there are ideas that maybe she needs to know and that might be helpful to her in life. But she doesn't like the 30-minute circumlocution backstory, which is also a reason I limit these shortcasts to 15 minutes, just in case I have some low in openness listeners who are like, will you just shut up and get to the point? So I'd love to know, are you high in openness? Are you low in openness? How do you know that? And how does that play out in your life, in relationships? I know Robin's on here. I've had a few conversations with you, Robin. You seem to be a high in openness guy to me, especially with your musical talent and your appreciation of beauty and poetry and whatnot. So you strike me as somebody who's pretty high on that openness scale. But I would love to hear from you. Are you higher in openness? How does that play out for you? Are you lower in openness? How does that play out for you? And it'd be cool to know what's going on with our community here at Better Daily. Guys, thank you for joining me on Word Thursday as we're going through the personality traits. Next week, we'll hit the last one of the big five, and that is neuroticism. It's just as much fun as it sounds. Tomorrow's Flex Friday, we'll go through an exercise movement to help you on your betterment journey. And until then, it's just 1%. You got this.
Thank you for joining us for your 1% Better today. Don't forget to subscribe for the podcast. Leave us a raving review to tell others how Better Daily has helped you in your journey. If you want more Better Daily, download our app and join our betterment family at betterdaily.live. Use code POD to get 25% off your subscription. That's POD, all caps, to save 25% on your subscription. We all have a cross to carry. It's lighter when we do it together. Go to betterdaily.live today.